Dubai glittered like a jewel in the desert night. Neon lights painted the skyline, and the tallest towers pierced the sky as if to challenge the stars themselves. At the very top of this dazzling world lived Ayaan Malik, a name that resonated from Karachi to New York. At just 32, Ayaan had become the CEO of Malik Enterprises, one of the Middle East's largest construction empires. His garage displayed Lamborghinis and Rolls-Royces like trophies. His penthouse occupied the top floors of Burj Khalifa, and his passport was stamped with the most exotic destinations on Earth. Wherever he went, the world followed. Magazines splashed his face across glossy covers, calling him the Golden Bachelor. Red carpets were rolled out, champagne flowed endlessly, and photographers fought to capture his every move. But beneath the shimmer and spectacle, Ayaan carried a silence no one could hear. At night, when the city pulsed with life and laughter, he often stood by the floor-to-ceiling glass windows of his penthouse, staring at the sea of lights below. They looked like a million beating hearts, yet his own heart felt strangely hollow. I have everything. Yet why does it feel like nothing? He wondered. Every day was a race. Mornings filled with boardrooms and negotiations, nights drowned in glamorous parties. People surrounded him, but none of them were truly with him. Friends were there for the champagne, the laughter, the photos, but never for the quiet moments when he needed someone to understand. He once told himself that success would fill the void, that the applause of thousands would silence the loneliness inside. But the truth was harsher. The applause echoed only louder in the emptiness. One evening, his closest friend Rehan, a well-known fashion mogul, leaned against the bar at a private yacht party and looked at him closely. Ayaan, you're the king of this city. You have wealth, fame, power, everything men dream of. But your eyes, Rehan paused, sipping his drink. They look tired. Why do you always look like something's missing? Ayaan smiled faintly, the kind of smile that hides more than it reveals. How could he explain that in a life so loud, he longed for a silence filled with meaning? That in a world full of diamonds, he searched for something as simple and rare as authentic love? Later that night, he sat at his mahogany desk, a diary open before him. Few knew he wrote, scribbles that no one else ever read. He picked up his pen and let the words bleed out. I am a billionaire. I am admired, but I am alone. Money cannot fill the emptiness of the heart. As he closed the leather-bound diary, he exhaled slowly. The truth was written, at least to himself. He had built towers that touched the sky, yet inside he was crumbling. Little did Ayaan know that fate had already placed a spark on his path. A smile, pure, unpretentious, and brighter than all the city's lights, was about to change everything. The ballroom of the Noor Hotel glittered like a palace of glass. Chandeliers rained golden light onto the marble floors, where the city's elite drifted in gowns that cost more than an average man's yearly income. Waiters glided with trays of champagne, and journalists whispered the names of celebrities entering the hall. It was the annual charity gala for children's education, and of course, Ayaan Malik was the evening's most anticipated guest. The moment he arrived, the cameras turned. His tailored black tuxedo fit him with effortless perfection, his watch alone worth more than some attendees' entire outfits. People leaned in to greet him, their smiles polished, their compliments rehearsed. But for Ayaan, it was all another performance, one he had mastered, but one that drained him each year. Then, through the blur of diamonds and silk, he saw her. She stood near the corner of the hall, not vying for attention, not flashing designer labels. She wore a simple white dress, its fabric flowing gently like moonlight. Her hair fell loose over her shoulders, and the only jewelry she wore was a delicate silver bracelet. She was laughing softly with two children who had been invited from one of the funded schools, crouching down so she was at their level. Ayaan froze. It wasn't her dress, nor her beauty, though she had both in abundance. It was the ease of her presence. In a room full of people trying to shine, she glowed without trying at all. Rehan's voice broke into his trance. That's Maya, he said, following Ayaan's gaze. She's a volunteer literature student, helps organize these charity events. Not from our world, bro. But she's different. Different. That was an understatement. For the first time in years, Ayaan felt his carefully composed mask slip. He excused himself from a cluster of investors and, almost without realizing it, walked toward her. The crowd seemed to part, though in truth he was simply moving with singular focus, drawn by something he couldn't explain. When he reached her, Maya looked up from the children. Their eyes met, and in that moment, the noise of the gala, the music, the chatter, the clinking glasses, all faded. There was only her smile. It wasn't the forced, polite smile he had grown used to in his world. It was warm, unguarded, and alive. "Mr. Malik," she said softly, standing to greet him. Her voice was gentle, but steady, as if his reputation and wealth meant nothing to her. She extended her hand. He took it, and for a fleeting second, something stirred in his chest. Something he hadn't felt in years. "You know me?" he asked, suddenly aware of how foolish the question sounded. Her lips curved into a faint grin. "Everyone here knows you. But tonight is not about you, is it? It's about them." She nodded toward the children. Her words landed like a stone in a still pond, sending ripples through him. Everyone else he met at these events fought to talk about him, his business, his wealth, his fame. But here was a woman who, in their very first exchange, reminded him of what the night truly stood for. He was disarmed, intrigued, captivated. For the rest of the evening, he found his eyes drifting back to her. While others flaunted connections and exchanged business cards, Maya was busy kneeling beside children, reading them stories, making them laugh. Ayaan realized he hadn't smiled genuinely in weeks, and yet watching her, he found himself smiling without even noticing. Later, when the event drew to its close, he saw her preparing to leave. She carried no designer clutch, no entourage, just a tote bag filled with papers and books. Before he could stop himself, he called out, "Maya." She turned, a little surprised, her expression curious. "I'd like to know more about the work you do," he said. His tone was formal, but beneath it, his heart was unsteady. She tilted her head, studying him for a moment. "It's not glamorous," she replied. "But if you really want to see, come to the library on Friday. I'm hosting a reading session for the kids." With that, she gave him that same unshaken smile and walked away. Ayaan stood there, surrounded by glitter and applause, yet utterly still. For the first time in years, the noise of his world seemed to quiet, replaced by the echo of a single smile that refused to leave his mind. For days after the gala, Ayaan couldn't escape the memory of that smile. He had attended hundreds of events, met royalty, celebrities, CEOs, but none of them lingered in his mind like Maya did. There was something disarming about her, not just her beauty, but her refusal to treat him like the center of the universe. He sat in his office one evening, the skyline of Dubai blazing behind him. On his desk lay reports worth millions, contracts awaiting signatures. Yet his pen hovered in the air, motionless. His thoughts were elsewhere. He remembered the way she bent to talk to the children, her laugh ringing clearer than the ballroom's orchestra. The way she had spoken his name without awe or hesitation, as if he were just another man. And that final line, "Come to the library on Friday," it gnawed at him, pulling him away from the spreadsheets and meetings. By Friday afternoon, he made up his mind. The small community library was nothing like the grand halls Ayaan was accustomed to. Its paint was chipped in places, the chairs were mismatched, and the smell of old paper filled the air. Yet as soon as he entered, he felt a warmth no luxury lounge had ever given him. Children gathered on colorful rugs, clutching books that had clearly passed through many eager hands. And there, seated cross-legged among them, was Maya. She held an open storybook, her voice animated as she read aloud. The kids listened wide-eyed, laughing at the funny parts, gasping at the twists. Ayaan stood at the doorway, unnoticed. For the first time in years, he felt invisible, and strangely, he liked it. He watched as Maya's eyes lit up with every sentence, how she paused to ask the children questions, encouraging them to think. Finally, she glanced up and saw him. Her eyebrows rose slightly, but she didn't pause the story. Instead, she smiled briefly, the same calm smile from the gala, and continued reading. "I'm fine," she said, her cheeks flushed. She pulled away gently, but the warmth of her touch lingered on his skin. That night, as Ayaan drove home in his black Lamborghini, the city lights flashing past him, he realized something unsettling. In all his luxury, he had never felt as alive as he did chasing after a girl in a dusty orphanage yard. Maya was not part of his world, but perhaps she was what his world had been missing all along. The weeks turned into months, and what had begun as curiosity transformed into something Ayaan couldn't deny anymore. Maya had quietly become part of his life, not in the way most people force themselves into his orbit, but gently, as if she had always belonged there. It started simply, a coffee shop tucked away in the old part of town. Maya preferred it over five-star lounges. The place was modest, creaking wooden chairs, chipped mugs, the scent of fresh cinnamon in the air. Ayaan, used to polished marble and imported beans, had never set foot in such a place before. When they sat down, Maya smiled across the table. "Don't worry, Mr. Malik. Their coffee won't bite." He smirked. "It's Ayaan," he corrected. She tilted her head. "Fine then, Ayaan. But don't expect me to treat you like your board members." That made him laugh, a real laugh, not the rehearsed chuckle he had perfected at business dinners. The coffee arrived in mismatched cups, and though it lacked the sophistication of his usual orders, it tasted oddly comforting. Conversations with Maya were unlike any he had ever known. Others always wanted to talk about investments, properties, luxury cars. Maya talked about books she loved, poems that shaped her thoughts, and children who inspired her with their resilience. One evening she asked, "Why do you always look tired, even when you're surrounded by everything people dream of?" Ayaan hesitated. No one had ever asked him this, not seriously. But with her, he felt no need to hide. "Because everything I have is noise," he confessed. "Loud, endless noise. People come to me for what I own, not who I am. Sometimes I wonder if anyone sees me at all." Maya's eyes softened. "I see you," she said simply. The words hit him harder than he expected. For a man who had built skyscrapers, who had shaped skylines, it was astonishing how 3 little words could make him feel grounded. Their bond deepened in small, unremarkable moments that meant everything. They walked along the Corniche one breezy evening, ice cream cones in hand. Maya teased him when his melted too quickly. "Billionaire, but can't manage a simple ice cream," she laughed. He grinned, wiping his hand with a napkin. "In my defense, the sun is stronger than me." Another time, he drove her to the desert outskirts in his sleek SUV. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sand in shades of fire and gold, Maya leaned back against the car and whispered, "You live above the city lights, but you forget how beautiful the world looks in silence." He watched her as the wind caught her hair, and in that golden light, she looked more breathtaking than any luxury view he had ever paid for. But it wasn't just the beauty of these moments. It was the way Maya treated him. She didn't care about his wealth, his image, or his influence. When they played board games with the children at the library, she laughed when he lost. When they walked through crowded markets, she didn't let him hide behind tinted sunglasses. She made him taste street food and talk to vendors. She didn't see a billionaire. She saw a man, and Ayaan, who had once felt like a lonely king in a golden cage, began to feel human again. One night, after another long day of meetings, he drove not to his penthouse, but straight to Maya's library. She was there, rearranging donated books. He leaned against the doorway, exhausted. "You look terrible," she said bluntly, though her eyes sparkled with concern. "I probably do," he admitted, "but I didn't want to go home. Not tonight." She set down the books, walked over, and simply sat beside him on the steps. For a long time, they said nothing. And in that silence, Ayaan realized something profound. He wasn't empty anymore. Maya hadn't filled his world with noise. She had given him something far rarer, peace. That night, as he drove home, the thought wouldn't leave him. Maya wasn't just a friend. She was becoming the center of the quiet he had been searching for all his life. And though he didn't say it out loud, Ayaan knew the truth. He was falling in love. It was bound to happen. For weeks, Ayaan had managed to keep his time with Maya private. The late evenings at the library, the quiet coffees, the simple walks. But a man like him couldn't stay invisible forever. It started with a photograph. A tabloid caught them leaving the old coffee shop together, Ayaan holding the door for her, Maya laughing with her head tilted back. By morning, the image was everywhere. Golden bachelor and mystery woman. Is Malik finally taken? Splashed across glossy covers. Calls from journalists flooded his office. Paparazzi camped outside his penthouse. Investors whispered in his boardrooms. And Maya? She wanted nothing to do with it. When she saw the headlines, she looked at him with disbelief. "This is why I didn't want you here," she said quietly. "I don't belong in this circus." Ayaan frowned. "It's just noise. They'll move on." But she shook her head. "It's not noise to me, Ayaan. I'm not built for this. I don't want my life dissected by strangers." The first cracks appeared during a dinner party hosted by one of Ayaan's business partners. He insisted Maya come with him, assuring her it would be harmless. The hall sparkled with chandeliers, every guest draped in couture. Maya wore a modest navy dress she had borrowed from a friend. She looked radiant, but in the sea of sequins and diamonds, she felt painfully out of place. As they entered, conversations hushed. Eyes lingered. Whispers floated like smoke. "Who is she? Not one of us. Why her of all people?" Ayaan held her hand tightly, but he could feel her discomfort. At the table, one socialite leaned in with a saccharine smile. "So, Maya, literature, was it? How charming. And do you plan to upgrade your career now that you're with Mr. Malik?" The word upgrade stung. Maya smiled politely, but said nothing. Ayaan's jaw tightened, but before he could speak, another guest chimed in. "She's sweet, but can you really picture her in your world, Ayaan? Media, investor, international galas? She doesn't fit." That night, as the car drove them home, Maya's silence was louder than any insult. Finally, she whispered, "They're right. I don't fit." Ayaan turned to her, his voice sharp with urgency. "You fit with me. That's all that matters." But her eyes glistened with doubt. "Is it enough? Can love survive when the world refuses to accept it?" The conflict wasn't only external. Maya herself began to pull away. She skipped the next few events he invited her to, claiming she was busy with library work. When he showed up unannounced, she looked tired, her smile forced. "I can't live under a microscope," she admitted one evening. "Your world is full of lights, Ayaan. I'm just a shadow in it." Her words tore through him. He wanted to argue, to promise her the world, but deep down, he knew the truth. Their worlds were colliding, and neither would escape unscathed. Meanwhile, Ayaan's board members weren't silent either. In a late-night meeting, one senior advisor pulled him aside. "With respect, sir, your image is our brand. Investors want stability, prestige. This girl doesn't belong to that picture." Ayaan slammed the folder shut. "She's not this girl. She's—" He stopped himself, realizing his voice was trembling with anger. But it didn't matter. The message was clear. Everyone wanted him to choose. That night, back in his penthouse, Ayaan sat by the window, the skyline glittering beneath him. He thought of Maya's words, "I don't fit." He hated that she felt small in his world. He hated that his love had brought her scrutiny instead of peace. For the first time, the man who had conquered empires felt powerless. And yet, beneath the weight of it all, one truth burned steady in his chest. He couldn't imagine life without her. The collision of their worlds had begun, and Ayaan knew he had to decide. Would he let society dictate his heart, or would he fight for the one thing money could never buy?